In this video we're going to have a look at adding shadows. You can see that these presents here have shadows around the outside, and that sort of embeds them in the picture, whereas these animals look a little bit stuck on. What we need to do to add shadows is we need to draw them in on a new layer. We can do this in a few different ways, but I'm just going to show you a very simple way to start with. So first of all, we need a new layer again, and let's make a shadow for the lemur. So I'm just going to name this lemur shadow like that, and there we are. That can be the shadow for our lemur. Now, in order to draw that on, I need to put it next to the lemur first of all, so that it goes over the right things. I'm just going to be drawing onto this layer. So you see I'm selected on this layer and no other, and I can select a brush that is very fuzzy, usually needed for shadows, and also it's going to be quite small because I'm going to need some details. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to make sure that I'm painting in black, and I'm going to create my shadow. And I'm just interpreting what the shadow is going to be. There we are, and there's his body coming up there like that. And I'm just going to fill this in nice and solid. So you can see that this is a really dark shadow. It already looks kind of effective, but it's very, very, very black. Just widen out his foot there. There we are. Much better. However, you can change the opacity of an individual layer. That means how see-through it is. So I can then actually make that more or less see-through, just like that. Now, you might also want to add a little bit more shadow to that, so you can sort of lighten it up at the edges, and you can darken it in the middle by adding another layer on top. So I've got my lemur shadow, which I'm going to set at 60% opacity like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the magic wand tool, and I'm going to, on my lemur shadow layer, select that shadow. So you can see the magic wand has done an outline. What I'm going to do is I'm going to modify that and contract, so make that smaller. So let's go by 5 pixels first of all. Okay, and we're going to go 5 pixels again, and we're going to modify contract, another 5 pixels. Okay, like that. Now if you want to neaten this up, you can actually use the Lasso Tool. If you hold down the Alt key, you can take bits away from the selection. If you hold down the Shift key, you can add in bits. So I might want a little bit more there. Now if I go back up onto this new layer, I can actually then use the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to make it a bigger brush to put that on top like that. Take off my selection, and again I can dip the opacity down on this, and you see it starts to deepen the shadow in the middle. There's all sorts of ways of doing this, but I would suggest have a play around, see how it works, and you'll have a bit of fun along the way. The one thing I'd just like to point out is if I go to the presence layer and move the presence, because I've made it partly see-through, you can see that the lemur's shadow overlaps the presence. So you can do that as well. And of course, if you want to get rid of the shadow, you can just dip out those two layers. And in fact, if I hold down Control and click on both those layers, so they're both selected, I can in fact merge them into just one layer, which I can call Lemur Shadow. Perhaps I want this always to be linked with the lemur, so I can create a new folder, and I'm going to call this new folder lemur. And then actually what I can do is I can put the lemur inside there, and I can put the shadow inside there as well. So the lemur can be now moved about with his shadow, or we can move it about independently. There we are. Have some fun with that, and keep going with Photoshop.